learned many years ago that there's a big difference between making a sale and making a customer. Now, I learned that on my first full-time sales job in 1966. It was a long time ago. I was working my way through college, figured the best way to earn money for tuition, etc., was to go out and sell. Now, not just sell, but sell on 100% commission door to door. Now, I did not have a good career counselor back then, so the product that I chose was a little unusual. I was selling cookware, pots and pans, door to door. Now, I know a lot of people complain about their products and the price being so high or competitors being lower priced. But put this into perspective. In 1966, I was selling a 10-piece set of cookware for $300. It gets worse. 4 of the pieces were lids. There were just 6 pots. But in my first 9 weeks, went out and sold over $11,000 worth of cookware, counting my commissions, sales contest winnings, bonus. I was making more than my father, more than most of my friends' parents. So by anybody's definition, I should have felt good, right? But something was wrong. Couldn't identify it back then, couldn't put my finger on it, but something wasn't right. Now, back then, we were taught when we went out and did our sales presentation to give a canned, memorized presentation, verbatim, word for word, couldn't deviate a word. We were taught, contrary to what was being taught back then, we were taught never ever ask for referrals immediately after you make the sale. Instead, we were taught as soon as you make the sale, get out before they change their mind. My target market, single women between the ages of 18 and 21 who were working full-time. I was 19 at the time, and I was working on my double prospecting system, but that's a whole other story. But I think it was when I delivered the cookware and I asked for referrals. And the response that I got that gave me this feeling something wasn't right. So, what's your first name? Dana. Dana. It's my daughter's first name. Dana. All right, so Dana, let's make believe that I'm delivering the cookware. You don't have to say or do anything, but I'm delivering the cookware to Dana. This is exactly verbatim, even choreographed. You know, they had these little things, you know, what I'm supposed to do as I'm saying these words. So this is exactly what I did. And you tell me if something doesn't feel right or sound right. Dana, what I want you to do, go get your appointment book. You and I were going to sit down. We're going to go through it page by page. And you're going to give me the names of all your friends who you believe should take advantage of the same opportunity you yourself took. Now, notice how I asked. I did not ask, Dana, do you have a book? No. Nor did I ask, Dana, would you please get the book? No. This was Jersey. Dana, get the book, let's sit down. Now, invariably, Dana, people like Dana, they'd look at me and their first response would be, I can't get the book. I would say, what do you mean you can't get the book? You don't have a book? She'd say, yeah, I have a book, Tony. I know a lot of people. It's not that I can't get the book. I won't get the book. You won't get the book? What does that mean, you won't? She said, I won't get the book, Tony, because I don't want you to do to my friends what you did to me. Hey, what did I do? She looked me right in the eye and said, Tony, you sold me. That's what I was supposed to do. That's what I was taught to do. Did it pretty well. But the way she said it had a very different meaning, didn't it? You sold me. People love to buy. Never, ever want to feel that they've been sold. When they feel they've been sold, they feel they've been had, taken advantage of. And this happened over and over and over again. After a while, I decided I could not sell the cookware anymore. I naively believed that the problems I was experiencing were not the result of the approach that I was taking, but the product I was selling. So what did I do? Instead of changing my approach, I changed my product. So I started selling mausoleums. I needed a counselor. Did that for 1 year till I ran out of prospects. Sold life insurance for a year. Sold burglar and fire alarms for a year until I finally got it. Wasn't the products, because I was getting the same results. It was my approach. I finally realized in the early 70s that maybe, instead of changing the products, maybe I should change my approach. So I started looking for another approach to selling, an approach that made me feel good about what I was doing, made me feel proud about what I was doing, but more importantly, made my customers feel comfortable about what I was doing. Now, in 1979, all of that research led to my first book, which was called Non-Manipulative Selling. Now, over the years, I changed the title. Today, I call it Collaborative Selling. Non-manipulative selling was too difficult to pronounce, so today it's collaborative selling. But here's what I realized. In doing all my research, I realized that anybody who is in the business of getting or keeping customers. By the way, just out of curiosity, how many of you fall into that category? Your responsibility in your job is either to get and or keep customers. Can I see your hands? All right, good. So I have plenty of people in here. I realized that anybody in the business of getting and keeping customers has to go through a series of steps before they get to the ultimate position in terms of a relationship with their customers or clients. Now again, anybody in sales knows that the very first step that you have to do is to find a prospect. How many of you actually prospect? Can I see your hands? All right, how many of you actually do cold calls? Can I see your hands? How many like cold calls? A lot fewer, a lot fewer. So here's the issue. In prospecting, there's a whole series of skills that we need to develop to master appropriate, effective prospecting. I call them marketing skills. All of those things that you do to uncover prospects and eventually get in front of them. Now, when I was selling, everything was activity. You know, go out, call on as many people as you can, and through the law of averages, through percentages, you're going to get some appointments and you're going to make some sales. It wasn't working smarter necessarily, it was just simply working harder. So I would be calling on all these prospects, whether they had a need or not, whether they were profitable or not, whether they had whether they were doing business with one of my competitors or not. It did not matter. We just called on everybody and anybody. Quantity was the key. But today, and probably even back then, that is really not the way to sell, is it? In prospecting, what we want to do is call on the best prospects, the primo prospects, at least initially, until we run out of those. Now, how many of you are familiar with a concept called Pareto's Principle? Anybody? Pareto's Principle? What is it? 20-80 rule. 20-80 rule. Now, the 20-80 rule basically says, in general, 20% of our customers give us 80% of our revenue, or 20% of our customers give us 80% of our profit. 20% of our products give us 80% of our sales. 20% of our products give us 80% of our profit. 20% of the salespeople in an organization make 80% of the sales. I mean, we can go on and on. So here is the key, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to prospecting. I would like you to look into your customer database and identify, however you want, who the top 20% is. It could be profitability, it could be volume, it could be ease of selling, it could be a certain category of needs that they might have, it could be that they're pleasant to do business with, it could be customer retention, however you want to define it. But when you come up with your top 20%, I want you to paint a picture, write it down, of what these people might have in common. What is it about these top 20% that I could use in my prospecting efforts so that when I go out and prospect, I want to prospect initially, primarily, maybe even solely, for new prospects who fit the profile of the top 20%. Does that make sense? We want to look for new prospects who fit the profile of the top 20%. Now, by the way, the 20-80 rule works the exact opposite way, too. 20% of our customers give us 80% of our grief and aggravation. How many of you believe that? How many of you have at least one customer, at least one, that you'd rather not have? You have that? I'd like to fire that person. You know, too often, we have focused so much on increasing the number of customers we have. We have focused too much on market share, not enough on profitability. I'm in business for myself, and I learned early, thank goodness I learned early, that there is a big difference, ladies and gentlemen, big difference between gross and net. What would you rather have? Right, if you're a business person, you want net. Net's more important than gross, no question about it. I want profitability. I don't want money-losing, whining, complaining customers. Now, there are businesses today that are actually looking at their customers and saying, you know what? All customers are not created equal. Some are better than others. Some are worse than others. And in fact, the ones where we are losing money, the ones where we are spinning our wheels, the ones that are complaining, the ones that are abusing our employees. You ever have a customer that abused employees? So what they did is they decided that they were going to look at this bottom 20% and cut a bunch of them out. Now, you've heard this whole category about rating your prospects, grading your prospects, A, B's, and C's, right? A is the top 20%, B maybe the middle 60% or so, C the bottom 20%. What they did is they went to the bottom 20%, and they decided that they didn't use, by the way, A, B, and C. They used, they categorized them internally. They do not want this to go out. That's why I'm not mentioning the company name. They don't want this public. But internally, they use their own categorization system. Instead of ABC, they used the title from that old Clint Eastwood movie. What was it? The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The good, they wanted to keep and nurture. The bad, they wanted to keep and grow. The ugly, they wanted nothing to do with. But I'll tell you this, they didn't just go out and fire the ugly. What they did, and I think this is a great philosophy, they went to the people who were money-losing, whining, complaining customers, and they gave them the opportunity to change. To change to make it a win-win. To change to make it profitable. To change so that they would move up into the B category. Those that refused, they fired. They removed discounts. They made it difficult. In fact, they made it so difficult for these customers that many of the customers simply quit. But the ones that they fired, talk about that was a great financial strategy, but talk about a great competitive strategy. When they fired the customers, they gave them the name and phone number of their biggest competitor. Hey, keep them busy with these people. But the key here, ladies and gentlemen, you want to make more sales, you want to make more profit, you want to have better customer retention, find better prospects. That's where it begins. Now, once we have a prospect and we have approached the prospect, we go into the next stair. And the next stair is the actual face-to-face selling process. Now, I have been a sales trainer. I have trained salespeople as a sales manager, as a college prof, as a professional speaker and sales trainer since 1970. And I will tell you, when it really comes to face-to-face selling, there are only 3 steps. We could tell you there's 7, there's 12, there's, whatever, but there really are only 3 in face-to-face selling. Step number 1, needs analysis. A needs analysis, finding out problems and opportunities on the part of the customer. Step number 2, solutions. Coming up with a product or products and services that will either solve the problem that they have or seize an opportunity for them. See, all customer needs pretty much fall into one of two categories. And as you're doing your information gathering, please remember this. Very simple. You're looking in a needs analysis. Number one, problems that you can help them solve. Number two, opportunities that you can help them seize. Simple as that. All information you gather, a problem or an opportunity. Third step, what is it? Pretty obvious. We have the needs, we have the solutions, closing. Closing, or getting commitment and implementation. Closing is really a two-step process, and that is commitment and implementation. And I'll tell you, one without the other, no good. Now you may say, hey, if I get implementation, that's great. I don't need commitment. Well, implementation without commitment leads to buyer's remorse. We don't want that. How about commitment without implementation? Hey, Dana, I love your product, I love you, I love the company, and I'm going to buy someday. You ever have that? We need both. So basically, it's needs analysis, solution, and closure. And by the way, I believe selling is incredibly easy. Making a sale, one of the easiest things you can do. Now, not everybody agrees with me, but I'll tell you this. Here's how easy it is to make sales. All you have to do, overpromise, underdeliver. How many sales can you make? A lot of sales. How many second-time sales to the same person? Probably none. Which now brings us to the third of 4 stairs, and that is repeat customers. You want to get a repeat customer? It's better, instead of overpromising and underdelivering, to do what? Underpromise and overdeliver. That's what you want to do. Here, in building repeat customers, what we do is we rely on a set of service skills. And I can simplify this. You want repeat customers? Consistently exceed their expectations. How many of you have heard that? You have to exceed the customer's expectations? You've heard that? Let me tell you a problem. In order to do that consistently and effectively, there are 3 things you have to do first. Number 1, identify what those expectations are. Customer by customer by customer. Different customers have different expectations. Would you agree? Number 2, manage it. Sometimes customers have unrealistically high or low expectations. Now, if a customer has unrealistically low expectations, you might say, that's a no-brainer, that's good. But it's not. And why is it not good when a customer has too low expectations? Because anybody can meet them. Lower cost, lower quality competitors can meet low expectations. We don't want low expectations. We want them high enough that our competitors can't hit them, but low enough that we can't, which means sometimes customers have unrealistically high expectations. And as good as you might be, as many hoops as you jump through, if they have unrealistically high expectations, you cannot meet them. Have you ever run into an experience where a customer had unrealistic expectations? We want to monitor how well we're doing on an ongoing basis. You ever think about how a guided missile works? Do you realize that a guided missile, one of these super smart missiles, are never on target until they hit the target? If you watch what it does, it's constantly going like this. It's constantly correcting, immediate feedback, correcting until it hits its target. And what we need to do is constantly be monitoring how well we're doing with our customers. Make it easy for customers. Make it non-threatening for customers to tell you when they have a problem, a complaint, a concern, because I think it is an incredible disservice when a customer has a problem and they don't tell you, because they never give you the opportunity to correct it, make it good, to keep them in the fold. I use an analogy here of a red phone. I worked with a company many years ago, fast food chain. Fast food chain. They were having a lot of customer complaints, and it wasn't getting resolved. The president got disgusted with it and decided, I'm going to solve it myself. He put a telephone on the counter of every single fast food restaurant. Telephone didn't even have buttons on it, one of these super secret telephones. And it said on a big sign above the telephone, dear customer, if you have a problem at this restaurant that is not resolved to your satisfaction, please pick up the phone. It will ring on the desk of the president, and the president will resolve your problem. So he installs all these phones all over the Southeast in his restaurants. Doesn't get a single phone call for 2 weeks. He thinks that the phone company made a mistake in the installation. And he found out that that wasn't the case. Here's what he did find out. Here's why he wasn't getting any calls. You're the manager of the restaurant, and a customer is reaching for the phone. They were jumping over the counter to solve the customer's problem so they would not pick up that phone. So we want to identify, manage, and monitor expectations, and if we do that, we will consistently exceed them. And when you exceed a customer's expectations, you create a moment of magic. When you fall short, a moment of misery. Now, a lot of people, if they could get up to that third step, they would say, I have made it. That's repeat business. That's referrals. But I think that there is a higher step. And that step is called apostle. An apostle. What is an apostle? We don't have many apostles, I'll tell you that. In our customer base, there's not a lot, but I'll bet just about everybody has at least one. An apostle is a raving fan, a business advocate, somebody who is out there in the marketplace preaching the gospel for you. Incredible word of mouth. They're like an unpaid salesperson who is helping you. Now, you don't have to ask them for referrals. What do? They send it to you. How many of you have at least one apostle that you can identify just like this? One apostle. And what value would you put on apostles? Priceless. Priceless. You build apostles through your relationship skills. One-to-one, one at a time, a lot of attention, a lot of nurturing. Now, I'm going to show you a strategy that you can create more apostles. Before I show you the strategy, let me ask you this. How many of you have a written plan, step-by-step action plan, on how you will increase the number of apostles that you have each and every year? You have it written down, and it's step-by-step action plan. Can I see your hands? All right. 2 people, which is 2 more than this morning. Because most audiences, I don't care how big the audience is, I rarely see a single hand go up. And the reason is, we know apostles are priceless. We love apostles. We wish we had more of them. And we just think that they happen. They either happen or they don't. You can create apostles. Now, I'm going to show you something, and I guarantee you that all the time and money you invested to be here tonight, this one idea will pay it back 1,000-fold. But you need to go back and do it. And herein is the big problem. Unfortunately, many of you will not. You'll say that's a great idea, and you'll go back and you'll get back into the routine of things, and you won't put this into play. By the way, you don't need many apostles to have a significant, sustainable impact in your marketplace. Significant, sustainable. How many apostles do you think you need? It's not a lot. How many? 12. There's a good number. I don't know what that number means. Has a good ring to it. 12 apostles. That's what I want you to shoot for. 12 apostles. Significant, sustainable impact. You only need 12. That's it. Now here's my plan for you. However many apostles you have today, let's say you have 3. Right? And by the way, you may think you have 3, but I bet many of you do not. A true apostle. I've been in business 30 years as a speaker. I probably don't have many more than 12 because it takes work. It takes work to build apostles, and it takes work to keep apostles. And many people don't want to put in the time and effort. but it pays back in immense dividends. And here's how simple this is. This is as simple as it gets. You ready for this? Here's how you create more apostles. Number one, I want you to write down the names of all your apostles. And again, I'd be surprised if many of you had more than 4, 5, 6. 6, I would be shocked. Real apostles. I'm not talking about good customers. I'm talking about apostles. People are out there just preaching the gospel for you. Number two, I want you to look at the names of those apostles that you write down, and then I want you to write out a list of things that you do with those apostles that you might not do with your other customers, or things you do with those apostles that you do with other customers, but you do more of it and you do it better with your apostles. Now, what do you think that might be? Now, I want to show you how this works because there's a little catch here. So those of you who have apostles, if you were going to write one thing down that you do with your apostles that you might not do with any of your other customers, or you do it better or more with your apostles than you do your other, what would that be? What would you write down on that list? Anybody? Communicate. All right, now, I was hoping I'd get something like that. All right? Here's why I asked for this, because I knew I'd get something general. I communicate with them. All right? Now, that's important, but watch what we're going to do here. I want somebody looking at this list. Another person in your company looks at this list and they say, I communicate with them. What would they do? What does that mean? I communicate with them. Is that open to interpretation? Yes. How do I communicate? How often do I communicate? What mode of communication do I use? Now, so let's get specific. I'm looking for something that I write down that somebody else could look at for the very first time and say, I know exactly what to do. It's spelled out right there. So let's go back to, I communicate with them. Give me a specific. Family. So you get involved with them in family-related activities? Okay, now that's, so what he's saying is with apostles, he actually gets involved in family-related activities with the apostles. So if it's a child's graduation, if it's a birthday, it's an anniversary, you may celebrate it with them. So they're probably also friends too, aren't they? There's a social aspect here. All right, so I could write that down and somebody can say, oh, all right, now I know that with apostles, I am doing specific social things that celebrate events in the lives of those people, whether it's birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, whatever. Okay, that is what I'm looking for. Give me another one. Yes?
After they give me a referral, I call them and let them in all the positives of that.
Okay, so,
Whether they ask me to or not.
okay, so what she's saying is after they give her a referral, she calls them back and gives them the lowdown on everything that happened, positive, negative, results, success, failure. Okay, now, I'm going to say that that is something you should do with everybody, not just your apostles. You should do that with everybody because you're going to get a lot more referrals that way. But, okay, but it is something that is very specific, and I thank you for it. Anything else? One more, ladies and gentlemen, all the way up there. You take them to seminars. Do you have one with you? All right. Are you an apostle? Take them to seminars, educational activities. All right, so these are the types of things that I want you to write down there. As many as possible. Now here's the last step. Last step. I have my apostles. I have what I do with them in as much specificity as possible. And then third and final, I want to write out a list of current customers that you can turn into apostles. Now, here's the catch. However many apostles you have written down, let's say you have written down 4, I want you to write down twice as many customers, like 8. If you have 5 apostles, you're going to write 10. If you have 3 apostles, you're going to write 6. I do not want you to get carried away and write down 20 if you have 3 apostles. It's going to fail. It's going to overwhelm you. All I'm asking you to do is however many apostles you write down, put down twice as many current customers, good customers, who, if nurtured the right way, can be converted to apostles. So, with the names of these customers, what are you going to do with them? You're going to do more of the stuff up there The things that you do with your current apostles, you're now going to do with these targeted good customers who you want to convert to apostles. And here's what I'm telling you. You will convert, guaranteed, half of them. So in the next 2 to 3 years, if you do this, each and every year, you'll double the number of apostles that you have. If you start with 3 in 2 years, guess how many you'll have? 12. 3 years, you start with 2, you're going to have more than 12. You'll have 16. But that is a specific plan. And by the way, this should all be done on a single sheet of paper. You put it in a page protector, and you have it where you see it. Let's talk about several components of customer loyalty, all right? Building value for the customer, that's number 1. Creating a perception of difference is number 2. Number 3 is selling several different products. Number 4 is exceeding customer expectations. And 5 is building an emotional attachment. 5 ways that you can build more customer retention, more customer loyalty, and apostles. Now I'm going to go through this quickly and watch. First of all, how do you build value for the customers? By understanding a bedrock concept of collaborative selling. And here it is. In selling, as in medicine, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Anybody who attempts to sell a solution to a customer before fully understanding the customer's needs from the customer's point of view is engaging in sales malpractice. All the information that you gather from your customers will fall into one of 2 categories. Problems that you can help them solve, or opportunities that you can help them seize. As you're doing your needs analysis, ladies and gentlemen, put the information that you gather into one of those 2 categories. Hey, here's a problem I can help them solve. Here's an opportunity I can help them seize. Problem, opportunity. As you're gathering information, there's key pieces of information that you should be uncovering. What is the customer doing now, and what should they or could they be doing? The difference between what they should be doing and what they currently do is called the need gap. Crucial aspect in selling, crucial concept, the need gap. If what they're doing now and what they think they should be doing are pretty close to each other, very small need gaps, very small need gap, what's the likelihood they're going to take action? Not much. What they're doing now versus what they should be doing, if there's a big difference, a big need gap, what's the likelihood they're going to take action now? Pretty big. So your goal as a salesperson is to make them ask the questions that make them discover for themselves that what they're doing right now is not what they should be doing, and make them raise their sights and goals and objectives that there is something better they can be doing. The bigger the need gap, more likely they're going to take action. We want to find out what are their relevant past experiences dealing with our company, dealing with our competitors, dealing with a product or service such as the one that we sell, and were they positive or negative experiences. We want to find out who the decision makers are, especially if it's business-to-business selling, and what the decision-making process is. How do you go about making a decision such as this in your home, in your business? We want to find out what our competitive exposure is. For instance, if they're only talking to us and nobody else, you would sell one way. But if they're talking to you and your competitors, you would sell a bit differently, wouldn't you? So, crucial to understand your competitive exposure. What are their expectations? How will they judge 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road whether or not doing business with you, doing business with your company, buying your product or service, 3, 6, or 12 months down the road was the right decision? How will they measure that? And what's their time and budget constraints? Let's talk about how you create a perception of difference in the mind of the customer. Again, if there is competitive exposure, ladies and gentlemen, You need to know how you stack up against the competition. What are your advantages? In other words, what can you offer to your customers that your competitors can't and that your customers value? And what are the disadvantages that you have? And you do that for your major competitors, competitor A, B, C, D, whoever the major competitors are. One at a time, you want to say, here's how we have an edge over them, which is a selling point, and here's a disadvantage that we have. Disadvantages you can send back up to your manager or corporate, and hopefully some of these disadvantages can be corrected. Others can't. Sometimes you have what we may call a systemic disadvantage. It cannot be changed. For instance, your major competitor has been in business 20 years. Your company has only been in business 3 years. Not much you can do to change that. But there are ways that we can twist a perceived disadvantage into an advantage. And you can learn from a defense attorney on this one. Whenever an attorney is defending somebody who has something in their background that might negatively affect the way a jury looks at this person, what would a good defense attorney do? Wait for the prosecutor to bring it up? No, not at all. They bring it up, because if you bring it up in the best possible light. So if the competitor has 20 years, you have 3 years, you don't wait. You bring it up. One of the advantages that we bring to the table is that we are a new company. We're a new company, but we have a lot of experience with our top execs. But a company that is built on new technology, new platform, fresh ideas, as opposed to some of the other companies who have been around seemingly forever, and they're kind of stuck in an old mentality. We never mention company names, but we bring up and we put a positive spin on it. Now, what about products bought from you? What we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is cross-sell as many products and services as possible. And here's why. The more products a person buys from you, the less likely they will take their business elsewhere. Here's a rule of thumb. Anybody in here from a bank? Anybody from a bank, savings and loan, all right, credit union? Here's an interesting thing that we learned many, many years ago. When a customer buys only a single product from the bank, checking, savings, loan, credit card, whatever it is, only one product, there's a 50% chance that within 12 months they'll take their business elsewhere. But if you can sell them two different products, instead of a 50% chance of losing the customer, it drops to 10%. 3 products, 5%. 4 products, 3%. So the more products you sell, it's almost like putting golden handcuffs on the customer. It's harder for them to get out the more products they have. So not only do you make more money, more profit by selling more products, but you actually create more customer retention. I believe that what we need to do is, if you want to create apostles, you want to create long-term loyal customers, you must create an emotional attachment. People do business with people they like. You will pay more money to do business with somebody that you like and trust. Even though you can get it elsewhere cheaper, you will actually pay a little bit more to deal with somebody you like and trust. How many of you feel that you actually do that? There's value in the relationship. So what I'm asking you to do is simply, number one, increase the quantity of communication that you have with your customers. I believe the buyer-seller relationship is not unlike a marriage, in that the more communication, the stronger the bond. The less communication, the weaker the bond. That was borne out by a survey where they asked recently divorced couples. A divorced couple is almost like a customer saying, I'm not going to do business with you anymore. They asked recently divorced couples, what were the significant contributing factors to their divorce? There were a lot of different reasons, but I'll tell you what number one was: a lack of communication. 87%. 87% of the people picked the lack of communication. Well, of course, the researchers were beside themselves. They figured that they had the early warning signal for married couples. One more time, how many of you are married? Because I want to see if you can answer this question. They went out and asked married couples, as I'm going to ask you, how frequently do you communicate with your spouse in a week? 7 days, 168 total hours. How frequently do you communicate one-on-one with your spouse? Not at, with. I want you to pick a number. Don't yell it out. Just pick it in your mind. Everybody have a number? I want you to compare the number with what the research has found. Here's what the research has found. That the average married couple in a week, 7 days, 168 hours, communicates a grand total of 27 minutes. That's less than 4 minutes a day. 4 minutes a day. I'll tell you what disgusted me. I told the group last month, somebody yells out, "What have they got so much to talk about?" Increase the quantity of communication that you have with your customers. But at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, improve the quality of communication. You can't just be contacting them. There has to be a reason. There has to be a purpose, a quality of communication. Let me use another domestic example. You ever notice how a parent and child communicate compared to a grandparent and grandchild? Of the two, parent-child, grandparent-grandchild, who has the better quality of communication? Grandparent and grandchild. Now the cynics say it's because the grandparent and grandchild share a common enemy. A lot of truth to that, I'll tell you that. But watch how a parent and child communicate. Parent typically tries to bring the child up to the parent's level, whereas the grandparent does what? Goes down to the grandchild's level, physically, emotionally, psychologically. Let me see if you've been listening. What do you call that? Adaptability. Excellent. Adaptability. And therein is the whole circle. Improving the quality of communication, increasing the quantity of communication. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that in the time we spent together, approximately 2 hours, my goal whenever I speak to a group is that for every hour you invest with me, I want you to walk away with at least one take-it-to-the-bank idea that you will use that will positively change the way you sell and the results that you produce. How many of you truly believe that you're going to walk out of here with at least two ideas that you will put into practice? Great. Let me end with one story to kind of pull this all together. Many years ago, in the days of King Louis XVI, 4 noblemen allegedly committed a very serious crime, and as a result, they were put on trial. Now, during the trial, these 4 noblemen vehemently protested their innocence to no avail. They were still convicted and sentenced to death by none other than the guillotine. On that fateful day of execution, a special guillotine was built with 4 slots for the heads of these 4 noblemen. They were all led up one at a time, knelt down, hands behind their backs, and head in the slot. When they were all set, the royal high executioner came up with his axe. And upon word from Louis XVI, he cut the rope. And with that, the blade dropped. But as fate would have it, the blade got stuck. It jammed. It malfunctioned, but 2 inches from each of their necks. Well, that was seen by Louis XVI as a sign from above that they were innocent. So what did he do? He pardoned them, set them free. Well, you could just imagine how ecstatic they were. Each of them wanted to get up and express his feelings his way. And of all 4 noblemen, as you can imagine, there was a director, a relator, a socializer, and a thinker. First one to get up, the director. And in his own director way, expressed his appreciation for getting his life back and his freedom. He looked at everybody and said, "I told all of you during the trial that I was innocent. Now you finally believe me. And I might add, almost a little too late. Now I hope the next time I say something, you listen to me when I say it. And Louis, let me tell you something. I'm suing." Contrast that, the exact opposite, the relator. The relator gets up, turns to the executioner and says, "Look, I know this wasn't your fault. I know you were just following orders. I may have done the same thing, but I just want you to know I've let it go." Socializer jumped up, looked at everybody and said, "Let's party!" Oh, the last one up, the thinker. As the thinker got up, he looked up. He said, hey, wait a second. I see the problem. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.